A few weeks ago, a cartel training camp was discovered that also doubled as a crematorium and a place where they executed or at least got rid of a lot of bodies. And this was discovered by a group called Guerreros Buscadores, who is a group of family members that literally dedicates a lot of time to being able to figure out what happened to their missing loved ones. Unfortunately, that's not an uncommon thing. In this case, they found remains and personal belongings of up to 200 people. Maybe more, to be honest. It's a lot of backpacks, it's a lot of clothes, shoes, and things like that. And there's a lot of documentation going on of all the articles of clothing that have been found, because now nationwide we're having people being like, oh, that's the backpack and the shoes of my husband, or oh, that's the backpack and shoes of my daughter, right? So it's fucking devastating. And that goes into the reality of what we're talking about in some of the other videos, is that when expats move to Mexico, they're not paying the price of capitalism that we've had to pay for decades. They're not having their family members go missing. I have family members that have gone missing, and we have no idea whatever happened to them. But it's also not uncommon to know of people that have dedicated time volunteering or have given resources to some of these search groups, because there's a ton of fucking search groups. The cartel violence that kicked off in 2006 not only led to hundreds of thousands of people getting killed over those years, but it led to a fuck ton of people going missing that we never even know whether they were murdered or not. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know if they're in the sex trade, or we don't know what happened to them. So it's not uncommon not only to know somebody who's a part of a search group and donate funds or donate time to these search groups, but it's also unfortunately not uncommon to get used to like these extortion phone calls where people are trying to pretend to be your nieces and nephews or their uncles and saying, hey, I need you to send me money so that they can release me, blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, a lot of folks do fall for this stuff. It's just not something that these expats normalize. So this is the reality of what we've had to deal with. And this is one of those situations to where we're like, all right, Claudia, what are you going to do about it? That was one of the big questions that was being asked by the women's movement last weekend. It's like, Claudia, what are you going to do about this? We've got so many missing and murdered women. How are you going to respond to this? Today, Claudia rolled out her plan on what they're going to do about that. For starters, they said in a previous press conference, they're like, there's no way that this extermination and training camp was not known by the local authorities. So not only are we going to do a full investigation, but there's not going to be any immunity, regardless of who these folks are. If we find out that they had anything to do with this, they're going to be paying the consequences. They're going to be paying for that too, right? They also announced that they're going to be a few things. They're going to be consolidating all of their national database with the local database of missing folks, because that wasn't something that was going on before. So now they're going to consolidate everything into one database, so you have access to it from anywhere in the nation, and you'll be able to report from anywhere in the nation. There's also going to be a consolidation of state and federal forensics and evidence files that are going to get archived and shared across the board, so that you could kind of close some cases or at least make some progress. There's going to be a national agency to ID findings that has to do with prints and DNA and things like that. One of the big ones too is that I know here in the US, if you go missing, you can't report it for 72 hours. Claudia said, fuck that, we're not doing that. We're doing immediate search and rescue. Like from the get-go, the investigations are getting started right off the bat. We're not gonna wait 72 hours because we can't afford to wait 72 hours in a lot of these cases. They're also gonna be intensifying the severity if you get caught kidnapping or having anything to do with things like that, right? So that's a whole other thing. And they're going to be starting a whole department that's going to focus on family members of missing people and trying to get them with the resources and trying to plug them into the database and everything else. So hopefully there's a lot of progress that gets made relatively soon. And for one, it's good to know that at least we're not being ignored like we had been in previous administrations, because it's devastating not only to lose someone, but it's even more devastating to feel hopeless, like there's no progress or like there's nowhere you could turn to see anything happen. So hopefully things get better from here on out.